And at this point the Levada runs on the right hand side of the Camino, the footpath that Marino's standing on, and Senor João is standing in the line of the Levada. Obviously it's all covered in stones, moss and debris, trees. Let's see how far we can get today. The total length of what we cleared is 2.2 kilometers. But it is longer than that in reality. But the part beyond us, we're not going to attempt to clear yet. It's much more complicated, much more difficult. You can hear the sound of the river down below us. Quite a lot of water in it. It's the first day of March, and still a lot of winter water on the mountains coming down to the Ribeira. And at this point the Levada runs on the right hand side of the Camino, the footpath that Marino's standing on, and Senor João is standing in the line of the Levada. Obviously it's all covered in stones, moss and debris, trees. Let's see how far we can get today. The total length of what we cleared is 2.2 kilometers. But it is longer than that in reality. But the part beyond us, we're not going to attempt to clear yet. It's much more complicated, much more difficult. You can hear the sound of the river down below us. Quite a lot of water in it. It's the first day of March, and still a lot of winter water on the mountains coming down to the Ribeira. So we're continuing along. What Senor João, the topographer, is doing seems to be every 5 meters, every 10 meters he stops and takes a reading. He's using GPS to map, to give the coordinates of each point that he takes a reading, and then he can produce a basic plan for us of the line of the Levada. So every time Levada changes direction, he's taken a reading. You can see here a couple of large pine trees fell across the path. This is a public footpath, so they were cleared by the Junta de Freguesia, the parish council. It's enough for us to walk past. What happens here is the Levada, it's hard to see, but it crosses the footpath, and the topographer is actually in the Levada now. It's very much destroyed, degraded. There are places where the Levada has been washed away, but generally it's not in bad condition, considering it's been abandoned for 30 years, 40 years, hard to say. Marina's saying that this miniature valley is where, when it rains, the water runs down from the road, and this is like an overflow for the Levada. If we ever get to the stage of running water in this Levada, we will send it back to the river here until all of the Levada is complete and we can fill the whole thing with water. This is the start of our land here. Some of it's clean, some of it needs more work. taking more readings. So every kink in the Levada he's picking up within reason. It's not a perfectly straight feature. The original builders would have had to work with what they had, hand tools, and if they came across a large rock in the way, they'd have to go round it or through it, under it. Looks like a nice job. I think you have to do a degree, obviously 3 or 4 years in university. It's essentially land surveying, but in Portugal, levantamento topográficos, which is a land survey, are very much important, because if you've got some land you want to sell, or you've inherited an old farm which is abandoned, overgrown, one of the first stages is to see the boundaries, clear the land, and if you want to build a house or do any kind of development, you need one. You need to know where the boundaries are, who your neighbours are, and what's on the land. The job today for Sinews Round is quite simple. It's following a linear line, over 2 kilometres. Basically the start and the end of the Levada, where it picks up water from the river and where it's going to deposit water back to the river. You can see we've got a Medronero tree here, strawberry tree, growing out of the wall. That'll have to go, but we're leaving it for now. And then beyond is a cherry tree. This is part of our land here. You can see some damage here where a tree fell a long time ago and pulled some of the bank of the Camino away, and it obviously is blocking the Levada. Olive tree there, which we gave a slight prune. We've been cleaning this land. This land is our neighbours, but we had to clean it to get access to the terrace, and therefore access to the Levada. One of the trees that we had to cut down. And these two will need coming down. They're not in the line of the Levada, but they are getting a bit big. So what happens here is the Levada continues along, gently climbing, like a canal, and the Camino goes up there. What we have here is a little, we call it the diagonal, and that little building that goes down to access the river. This is an interesting feature, several of these, a little change in level where the Levada will drop a foot or so. Another big tree we had to fell. We haven't processed it yet because it's in a nice safe place. It's jammed behind that rock. We'll leave it now until we get some friends around so we can help cut it into reasonably long sections and take away. This section of the Levada runs along our land. This is what we call the wilderness. We haven't done much with this, it's too steep. Some nice trees in there, but we've been keeping this clean for 2 or 3 years, so there wasn't too much to do here. You can see we've got lots of tidying up to do, but there are some nice trees here. So some oaks, cork oak. There's a small cork oak there. So what looks like a footpath is actually the Levada. We've got a nice sombrero here, cork oak. This side of the hill is facing northwest. You can see by all the moss, musgo, which is growing here. There's lavender growing here. Yeah, it's a wilderness. I don't think this side of the farm was ever farmed. They probably just let their goats go in and graze. Another interesting feature, a little drop in height. There's a ridge of rock coming down, and the original builders cut the channel that they could. You can see the channel here. You can call this lookout. There's the river below. Our neighbour's farm opposite, he used to Seigneur João. He used to tend his goats there, but he stopped doing that now. So we continue, a little channel cut out there. It's actually quite a beautiful walk along the Levada, and it would be nice when the water runs if we could walk along it. We'll have to be able to do that for maintenance. It's like a right of way. If the Levada runs through your land, it's the custom that the maintenance must be able to be carried out. So it's not a path as such, but we are all allowed, and it's in our own interests to keep it clean, repair it, keep the water running. There's a fine oak tree there. Everything's still leafless. It's still late winter, early spring. Little cork oak growing here, and a madronia. There's the little fruits, which will be ready to eat at Christmas. This is a point where the Levada now rejoins or crosses the Camino. The Camino comes from there, and drops height, but the Levada obviously has to maintain its height like a canal with a very gentle decline. So it crosses the Levada here, and it would have flowed through this tunnel. This section was one of the hardest we had to clear. It was a complete mess of bramble and vines and fallen trees, gorse, broom, and collapsed walls. This isn't our land. No more of what we're going to film is our land, but a small team of us managed to clean all 7 landowners' sections of the Levada. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fun, but it's a good feeling to have done it. This was a difficult area for the original builders, and the walls are still falling down now. Obviously there's a landslide here. We'll have to dig all that out and rebuild the line. Even in this state, it's very peaceful. The Levada comes through this tunnel. Like it had to cross the stream. It's destroyed now, but it would have ran along that shelf, which is hard to see. Perhaps they used a... I think they probably rebuilt it every year after the rains, after the storms, because this stream in the winter can be quite a torrent. A pond, a small bridge. There's a lot of water down there. This is not the Levada, this is an overflow stream. In times of high water flow, I suspect the original owners of the Levada would have tipped the water into the stream to get rid of it. Because when it rains here, it does rain. There's a vine climbing up the tree, so it's hard to imagine, but the Levada is here along this collapsed bank. This is one of the worst sections, as I said a minute ago. Chestnut tree, which will have to come. You can see that the bank is falling down here. There's the Camino. And down there is this stream that we just looked at. We had to use our imagination when we were trying to find this line, and a lot of the local people either couldn't remember or didn't want to remember, for various reasons. It was too difficult. A lot of elderly people, we couldn't expect them to come and show us something that they hadn't seen for 30-40 years, especially when it was impassable. But several people did help us, showed us where they thought it went, or they remember where it went on their land at least, or where their grandfather used to take the water. And so now the Levada is crossing the Camino again. Camino runs up to our right, but we are staying at a similar level. Big pine tree will have to come out, and this one is growing in the bank. We can more clearly see the old channel now. All three of us are walking in it. Again, this was a difficult section to clear. Lots of landslides. See the round stones, granite stones, which they use to build two things: the wall of the Camino, the boundary of someone's land, and the side of the Levada. Another little tunnel. Old animal shelter there. You just have to duck to go underneath this bridge. Yes, it was hard here. We have trees everywhere. We haven't removed all of them yet. Again, we have to be respectful. We wanted to clean the Levada. Clean means clear. But we have to remember that all this land belongs to someone else. So we're not just going to take down all the trees. We have their permission, but these trees are their property. I don't think they'll want to do anything with them, but there's quite a beautiful feature here, a large rock, and they made steps on top with large stones, and the water had flowed this way underneath. This is an olive tree here. Needs some attention. And a cherry. One of the worst landslides in the project. Everything tumbled down here. Look, 2 or 3 pine trees gave up, fell, ripped everything apart. We can clean it. This is a bend in the Levada here. That line of rocks in the ground signifies a change of ownership. Sometimes it could be just between 2 brothers or cousins. But someone would have farmed this side and someone would have farmed the other side. It's a good historical feature. Large granite rocks, which obviously were in place. Another tunnel. There's a walled channel here. It would have been a footpath and a way for water to escape. Well worth keeping, renovating. Olá, Manel.
Lourenço.
Tudo bem?
Então, está tudo?
Yeah, tudo. Yeah. Lots of damage here. This section was very hard to clean. The third person who's joined us is Manel. He is our friend and neighbour who really helped clean this. He's part of the project, 100% part of the project. So the Levada is in there somewhere. We'll find it. So the valley is opening up a bit now, where the view is. Not very sunny today, but it's warm. Now this land, nicely kept and green, belongs to Manel, the chap in front of us. There's a nice example there of a boundary wall. So here the Levada wall was constructed with granite because that was what was here. In other places it's constructed with slate or schist. And sometimes it was constructed with earth and clay. What we hope to do with the eventual reconstruction of this structure is to use traditional methods where we can. We could just use plastic pipes and so on, but tubes. But I think it's important to maintain some tradition. And if the Levada is open, it's much easier to maintain. If we send the water through a long tube pipe, it can get blocked and then it's difficult. There's the Ribeira do Avoca down there. So I'm not actually walking in the Levada now, I'm walking below it. Some olive trees which Manel is looking after. This is something which affects all landowners in Portugal. See how the ground is all churned up. That's javali, the wild boar. They cause a lot of damage. Some steps going down to another level. Another landslide.
é outra linha d'água. Deve ser, não sei, a água aqui, não sei se é em cima.
Marina was just saying there's another line of water here. It doesn't flow all the time, but when it rains, this is how the water gets off the mountain. And in olden times, and what we would like to do, is capture this water, save it for use when it's not raining. You can see it comes through there. There's nothing new. I think humankind has tried to preserve water for as long as humankind has been around. Sem agua, sem vida. Okay. Good condition land. Nice large meadow down there called a prado. And a good view of the river. Pretty benign today, but in stormy times it's a torrent, it's wild, dangerous. Two terraces below me show the nature of this marginal land, this marginal farming. About 10 square metres of grazing, and it was worth preparing it so that the goats can feed on it, graze it, sheep grow corn. It was worth it. It's hard farming here. The land is not flat. Small olive trees. Passa lá, sim, ok, tá bem. Obrigado. So another crossing point where the Levada has to cross a water channel.
E ele é ali que vai depois, não é?
Nós vamos por aqui e vai fazer ali uma curva. Nós temos ali o acesso, mas não...
Levada went through that hole in the wall. This is a difficult section because we can see here some collapses. The rocks have filled it in. All built by hand.
Não, isso foi a tempestade, acho que foi a tempestade, até fizeram um muro.
Isto não foi das pedras, quando abriram a estrada.
There is water in the Levada.
João, você agora...
É por aqui, não é?
É, mas...
Não, vocês não conseguem passar.
Não, mas a minha pergunta é,
É,
aqui.
Sim, foi.
fazer o mapa. É por aí, tudo assim por baixo, faz a curvinha.
Depois vai chegar aí, não é?
Sim. Vai passar, vai dar ali. Aqui é mais complicado.
Aí sim.
Mas olha, nós abrimos caminho para você entrar ali, se for preciso marcar.
Marca aqui, como tem aqui.
Exatamente.
Yeah.
Cuidado. Yeah. E agora, vai encostadinho na parede.
Senor João is taking a reading on the bend. It's not possible to walk along the line, but what we did yesterday, the day before, was clean an access point so he could get a reading there. We have to use our imagination. Just going to step down from this bank.
Venha assim. Depois, se você quiser ir para ali, já pode. Mais para... Exato, nós é. Não vem o marido.
Slate rock now rather than granite.
A cabra do mato. Agora, já está. Show the view of Cocorinho. It's amazing from here.
Sim.
Estava a dizer ao marido, para mostrar o Cocorinho. Vou fazer um vídeo para pôr no YouTube.
Am y tan you mash out a new Levada hospital. That's the Coconino mountain in the distance there. So the three of them are on top of the Levada and I'm below. We cleared this path yesterday so that if necessary the topographer can come this way because it's very narrow.
Vai por aqui.
É isto.
Sim,
Aqui
difícil.
destruiu, caiu
Ok.
o muro. Se quiser eu seguro aí a
Eu não
maquineta.
sei, olha.
Aqui tem o... Aqui como era uma passagem, fizeram aqui uma ponte. Sim, sim.
it's one of the most difficult sections here.
Ó, seu João, veja lá.
Yeah, okay, he's okay.
Este é dos piores bichos.
Attempt to climb this.
Água quente e sal tudo aqui, né?
And continue on along the Levada. This was another part which was very difficult to clear. It took us about a week altogether, three of us. And over the 2 or 3 years, tackling small sections. That tree was obviously right in the way. Another very difficult section. All of this eucalyptus was thrown on top. Years and years of Camino maintenance. I don't attribute blame to anyone. The workers just moved the trees out of the way.
Para não pôr aí o pé e pau.
It's a landslide of trees.
Não vai a fundo porque é muita mata.
Somewhere underneath this is the Levada. Beautifully built wall here.
É da urze. É da urze. Os urze são fortes, mas eu não vou para pular.
Não, aqui não.
Eu não
Vai
vou.
ver lá.
Não, Manel, não vou pular. Desculpa
Então,
lá.
Marina,
Eu vou à volta, tá bem?
vais à
Vocês
volta.
continuem. Love,
Yeah, yeah, I
I'll go back.
Ok.
See you
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Olha,
Vê lá, olha aqui, só veio de cima que vai
Vou subir por aqui. Passa-me aí as minhas luvas.
É muito mais perto.
Sim, mas
Só
eu
veio
aqui
com
também
salto.
não posso pular. Ali em cima também não posso.
Era deste
Vou
lado.
por
Tem que
por
tirar
onde
lá,
é.
vá. Tem que tirar lá. Vá, Malu.
Mostra aí ao senhor.
Sim, sim.
How about that for a swimming spot in the summer? It's narrow here. There's Marina. It was hard work cleaning this lot, but it had its moments. It was a nice place to sit and have lunch. There's a rotten tree, cut through that. There's the other end of it down there. Chasm through the rock, carved out by hand. A brambly mess here. We used brush cutters, chainsaws, hedge trimmers, loppers, secateurs, slashers, everything. The willow is all coming into flower now. Good for the bees. Some early food, and not much else is flowering. It gets easier now. There's another section where you have to cross a slippery rock, but apart from that, it gets flatter and wider. You can see that we're very close to the river now. All of a sudden, we're right on top of it. This is that slippery section of rock. We think here the Levada would have been channeled. Maybe they built an aqueduct. Obviously it's been washed away by the winter storms and just degradation over time. But you can clearly see this is the feature of the Levada that we're following. Another nice spot to check out in June and July and August when it gets very hot here. Another bad step. Pretty reach of the river, the Levada. So the three of them are standing on a landslide, so the Levada goes underneath that and ends up on the wall further forward. We'll have to dig it out. I don't think we'll be able to get a mini excavator down here. It'll have to be by hand. How it was built. In a few weeks' time, everything will be growing. It's the right time to do this survey. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Another willow tree. And so the Levada would run along under this wall, right next to it. This is a beautiful meadow by the river. I'd like to camp here. I suspect in the winter when the river's high this gets flooded. These are chestnut trees, apparently very good for the locals. And the wild boar, they like them as well. Cherry tree growing straight out. Manel says he's going to cut that down, make it into something good. There's paths and steps going up to various holdings, quintas. This is, I believe, a public path, a waterway as well, down to the river. Levada clearly defined here. We're nearly at the same height of the river now, about 2 or 3 meters above. This piece of land we're approaching now is very clean, and it's Manel's land. He does look after his land. He's very good at it. This is how people mark the land, as I said before, with stones like that, and sometimes a splash of paint. Manel's favourite band is AC/DC, so he's usually got that written around somewhere. Again, we have to use our imagination, but the Levada is here. This faint line of stones to my right. And we are right next to the river. Look at this. So the Levada does materialise under this path. We're near the end now, or the start, technically.
I'll stay here.
Yes, it's very ill-defined here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's there is a tunnel there.
Let's see
Show
that.
the tunnel.
Yeah. We have to use our imagination, but there is a tunnel there. It's all filled in with sand and stones. Of course, as I've said before, in the winter this we'd be wet here, you can see by the grass. And every year the Levada would have had to be repaired. This is the area that they call the Asud. It's where they made a pool to collect the water in the summer. They only use the Levada in the summer, of course. In the winter, not necessary. Too much water anyway. So it's somewhere here. So João and Manel are just trying to work out where it would be. But when we come to reinstating the Levada, we can start collecting the water at the best point. We really want the water to flow out of the river and gently into the Levada, like a canal. It was probably here, the pool, the Asud, just under the bridge that the local farmers use to cross their sheep and goats.
I think I'm looking